My name is Thomas Harde. I'm a Danish writer and translator and conference interpreter. I'm also the president of a network called Ja til sprog, which means something like languages, yes please, or yes let's have some more languages. And the network was formed a couple of years ago by a group of people and companies and organizations in Denmark which were worried because we noticed that over the past 10 years or so there's been a general loss of languages in Denmark. Danes used to pride themselves at being very good at foreign languages, and I think actually to a large extent they were perhaps better than the average European at other languages, but that's all in the past. Now many Danes are quite good at English. Some are very good at English, and about 20% are not proficient in English in any way at all. But it seems that German and French have somehow been lost along the way. Italian and Spanish are very rarely found in Denmark, and there's a tendency to believe that English is the only foreign language you need to know to get on in the world. It's a strange form of globalization. Danish plus English equals globalization. I think that in not only in Denmark but in all countries it should be a very clear policy to work towards making sure that all citizens know apart from their mother tongue, also English. In some cases English is the mother tongue, but then at least one, and even better if two, foreign languages, because the majority of people in the world do not speak English. A lot of people do to some extent speak English or are able to read and write in English, but English is to most people only a lingua franca, if it's that. And even though you may be good at it, and even though the person you're talking to may be good at English, you understand, you get closer to each other if you speak the language with the mother tongue of at least one of the parties. When I speak to Italians in Italian, I understand them better and they understand me better than if we try to speak in English. And the same thing if I knew Punjabi, or if my French was better than it is, or my Spanish, which is almost non-existent, I would understand people in Spain and France better, and they would understand me better if we could speak in their language, or if they could speak to me in Danish, of course. So the more languages you speak beside your own, the easier it is, very obviously, to communicate with other people, not just to talk to them when you travel as a tourist or if you meet them in your own country, but also to read their newspapers, read their books, listen to their songs, watch their films, and learn about their culture, understand about their culture, finding out what people in Germany or Spain or Brazil think about the war in Afghanistan, for instance, instead of having that information filtered through English language media. Is one thing. It could be any kind of information you want, it could be trade, it could be all kinds of interaction, which is made easier and more interesting if you can do it in people's own language, or in your own language if you're lucky enough to meet somebody who took the trouble to learn your language. And when I say that people should know languages, I don't say that they should know them at one particular very high level, which should be the same level for everybody. Different people may have different interests, different abilities, and different needs for learning foreign languages. And the thing is that they should just all have the chance to reach whatever their own limit is, to be as proficient as possible in as many languages as possible besides their own. And of course English should be one of those languages. It's very hard to get anywhere in the world or get anywhere in your own life or career without some command of English. And most people also in Denmark, which as I say pride themselves at being very good at English, should be much better than they are. It's hard to go to university, it's hard to get a decent job if you don't know English, but it's also hard, for instance, to study if you don't know some French, if you can't read German. But it happens more and more, at least in my country, that the linguistic landscape gets more and more, it gets narrowed down. 15 or 20 years ago, people in the University of Copenhagen would be able to read texts in English and German and French. And their teachers would be able to expect that the students would be able to read those three languages. 10 years ago, 15 years ago perhaps, that all began to change, and now people at the University of Copenhagen are able to read English, beside from Danish. Some may read German, some may read French, but no teacher can expect all the students in his class to be able to read text in all those languages. So the scope of teaching has been narrowed down to text in Danish and English, whereas it used to be, well, you could say 3 times as broad, because German and French were there as well. So that's a loss. It's a loss of the capacity to study. It's the loss of culture, that those languages have been left behind and are now sort of specialized niche competences. Another important thing about language these days is that many people are fortunate enough to grow up with more than one language. I grew up with Italian and Danish in my childhood home, and I went on to study Italian at the University of Copenhagen, and my whole working life has been based on that. Nevertheless, in many countries there seems to be the idea that bilingualism is a problem. That people should know only one language, that you can't be a proper Dane or Italian or Frenchman or whatever it is if you have more than one mother tongue, so to speak. To me, that's completely rubbish. Of course, the second language is a great resource which should be used to the benefit of the person and to the benefit of the society in which that person lives. Of course, it's a problem if what's really happening is that people don't speak their mother tongue well enough, and they don't speak the majority language well enough, so they have to speak 2 half languages and not 2 mother tongues, but that's a completely different problem.